Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are here to talk about the upcoming application cycle for our 2023 program year. So I am going to be going through what you can expect with the application and how we get through to awards. And hopefully I can operate the PowerPoint. So first and foremost, I just want to do some introductions of the ODOT staff. I am Macy Moore. I am the manager of the program management section in the Office of Transit. I will be doing the presentation today, but the other program coordinators are on the webinar and will be assisting me with answering questions and things like that. So I am going to go ahead and pass it to them so they can just do a quick introduction of themselves.
Austin, I'm the Urban Transit Coordinator.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alex Ewers. I'm the 5339 and Intercity Bus Program Coordinator here for the Office of Transit.
Kiera, are you on?
Yes, I was trying to get my computer situated. Hi, everybody. I'm Kiera, Branch 5310 Program Coordinator, Specialized Transportation Program.
Hello, everybody. I'm Pamela Pate, and I am the Statewide Mobility Coordinator.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Craves, and I am the 5311 Rural Transit Program Coordinator.
All right, so I think that is everyone. So I will go ahead and move on. So a few items to note. As Paula mentioned, the workshop is being recorded and will be accessible later. We are also going to be putting together a frequently asked questions document. So that's why that chat pod or the questions pod is so important. If the question is not in that questions pod, we can't access the transcript later in order to generate that FAQ document. So please make sure that you're putting your questions in there as we go along. And another request is to be specific with your questions. So if I'm speaking about something and you type in the question, what does that mean? And then 30 minutes later, the question is, what does that mean? I'm not going to know what you're referencing. So try to be specific with your questions, because once we get to that portion of the presentation, it's going to be a lot more productive if I know exactly what you need a response on. And then the PowerPoint itself will also be shared with the applicants following the presentation. We just ask that you give us until the end of the week to gather all this information together. It'll take a little bit of time for the LTAP team to get the recording put together, and then we need to put together the FAQ. So you should expect that information by Friday via email. So workshop objectives. By the end of the workshop, you should understand what the application workshop is and how it relates to the funding process, the steps in the application process for ODOT funding, and best practices for grant applications. An evaluation will be sent to the participants. So if you would participate in that, it will be brief, but it will help us improve workshops in the future. These really are for you and to help you be successful. And so if you're not getting that out of this, then we need to make some adjustments. So your feedback would be really appreciated. This will be a new format than what you're accustomed to in prior years, and I will get into that a little bit. So since this is really the first cycle that we are doing this type of workshop, it makes your feedback even more beneficial. So this is the agenda for today. First and foremost, I'm going to go through the application update. We've made quite a bit of changes to how the application is done. So I want to make sure we really take some time to explain that. And then I will give a brief summary of the amount of funds that we have available to award through this application cycle. I will then explain to you how to access the application. We will talk about some of the key things to remember when completing the application, then go through the best practices, and then finalize the workshop with our question and answer section. So that again is when we will go through the question pod and get through as many things as we can. And if there are any questions left unanswered at all, they will be addressed in the FAQ document that will be distributed. So just a quick recap of the ODOT funding cycle. So if you are here today, you made it through the letter of intent process and had some project requests accepted. So we are now in the second step of our funding cycle, which is this application workshop, again, which is to prepare you to be successful in the application. The application will be released March 28th and will be due May 4th. So we did extend it a few days. Typically, it's due the last day of April. And then we will move on to application review, award announcements, and then we will start our projects. So these are the important dates to remember for the application process. As I just mentioned, the application will be released on March 28th, due May 4th, and then the announcements will be by the end of July. We always aim to get any projects that have state funding announced as soon as possible, but you should expect to hear no later than July 29th. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go into our new application process. So as this title screen indicates, we are moving to one funding application. So this is a pretty big departure from our processes that's always existed. So I am going to take a little bit of time to try to explain what you should expect with that. So just the background on this process change. So we are moving to one funding application for all projects. So the reason that we're moving to this is because it's going to help us maximize eligibility for applicants. We can reduce duplication of effort for applicants, leverage our state and federal funds more effectively, and understand the statewide need for transit projects. So in the past, applicants would be expected to apply for multiple programs. So if someone wanted Section 5311 funding and Section 5339 funding and OTP2 state funding, they would be submitting 3 separate applications. And on top of that, you're then also asking applicants to understand our funding, what funding is best suited for what they're trying to accomplish, and a lot of those applications request the same information. So you're really duplicating effort with always having to submit, your organization information, your service information over and over and over. So that is two key benefits to this change. And then if we take away the burden from the locals in terms of understanding and requesting specific federal and state funds, then we can look at the request, just what you're trying to accomplish and who you are, and we can play matchmaker essentially between you and the funds that are most appropriate for your project. And that could mean that your projects, if you submit 3, that could mean you have 3 different funding sources to accomplish your goals in the 2023 program year. But if that allows us to fund more projects and ensure more success at the local level, then that's what we will do. And we'll make sure that all of our paperwork associated with your grants outlines exactly what those funding sources are for your records. And then, as the last bullet states, to explain that a little bit further, by getting all of these grants in, these requests in just in one effort, we can really look at what everyone is needing, and we can look at if there is duplication locally, if there is ways to have partnerships and kind of create the environment for coordination, and we can really kind of see that holistic ask of transit projects in the state. So internally, we are, a little bit nervous to be going through this the first time, and I'm sure it's going to be a little bit bumpy, but I think that the long-term benefits of moving towards this strategy is going to have benefits at the state and local level. So this is just kind of a visual representation of some of the differences between what you may be used to and what is to be expected this round. So in the past, we had applications in two different platforms. Some people used Black Hat, some people used FormStack. For this year, everything is in FormStack. The old process, we had separate applications for each program. Now you have one application for all programs. The applications used to be considered on a program by program basis, and now it's on a project by project basis. And then finally, in the past, the application workshops, you would attend them. We would talk about the program that you're intending to apply for, all of the requirements, all of the eligible projects, and then we would, speak briefly on how to apply. Since we are removing the programs as the focal point of the funding application, it allows us to adjust the application workshop to now primarily focus on how to apply and some things to consider. And if you are ultimately selected for funding, you will then attend a program orientation in the fall ahead of your program cycle. So then that way we're kind of separating the two, and we're trying to set you up for success with the program orientations as we get closer to you actually beginning to implement the projects. So you will still have that benefit of getting that one-on-one with your program coordinator and truly understanding the program and what's expected of you, but we're not trying to mesh the two together, and we're really trying to be more intentional with how we're communicating with you. So this is the general process flow under this new kind of strategy. So your application will be submitted via FormStack. Then you can expect award announcements via email, and those award announcements will go to the program contact that you list in your application, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. And then the awarded subrecipients will then submit your approved projects in Black Hat. So we will be using Black Hat moving forward for invoicing and contract generation. So in the past, you would go in and you would enter projects, and then potentially projects wouldn't even be approved. And now, we're just being very strategic and saying, you're only going into Black Hat and interacting with the system for projects will take place. Hopefully that will really cut down your effort as well. And then the awarded subrecipients will attend their program orientation, as I mentioned earlier. So again, the orientation is so that you can understand what's expected of you under the program and how to be successful in delivering the projects. And then the contracts will be sent out. The contracts and the award letters that go out in October, November of each year are actually what will spell out, okay, this project was funded via Section 5311, this project was funded via OTP 2, and you will know for your accounting purposes what kind of funds you're receiving. So this is just kind of a summary of the new process before I actually move on to the application itself. So again, applicants no longer determine the program best suited for your needs. You request projects, ODOT program staff play matchmaker to the available funds. By qualifying projects for as many funding sources as possible, ODOT can leverage the federal and state funding together to fund as many projects as possible, break down communication barriers between program staff and understand more holistically statewide need of program dollars, and make sure projects are best matched to the funding source that allows them the most flexibility and opportunity for success. So that is kind of the summary of why we're moving to the one application.